Yay, I'm back in my cozy little corner down here to talk about crime. So, crime is tough for me to talk about because, again, I lean really heavily towards conflict theory and towards that labeling theory. And so, crime is, looking at the system of justice or punishment that's related to deviance. And it bothers me because, of course, we know that the determination of what's considered to be deviant or criminal um, isn't just and it isn't fair always. So, crime is a more formal sort of deviance. However, it's not just subject to social sanctions, but usually it's also punishable by law. We have different types of crime. We have violent crime, which uses force or threat of force. We have nonviolent crime, which involves destruction of theft or property. We have street crime, which refers to crime committed in public and committed by ordinary people against other people or organizations. And then one of the ones that annoys me the most is white collar crime. And mainly it annoys me because our society overlooks it so much because it's not labeled as being as deviant as other forms of crime, right? We are made to fear one another and to fear violent crime and street crime and things like that, and not white collar crime, which is very costly and which actually can influence these other types of crime as we are put in unlivable situations. But I digress. White collar crime is committed by professionals in their capacity in the professional world against a corporation, agency, or other professional agency. So basically, when we say white collar crime, we're usually thinking about professionals who are still stealing money or who are misusing their positions, right? It actually has a greater financial impact than street crime, believe it or not. And also, it contains a particular type of crime called corporate crime. Now, with corporate crime, this is offenses that are committed by the officers of a corporation in the name of that corporation, right? And so this is probably the crime that people get away with the most, especially when we look at banking and finance, because our society is so linked to those very controversial areas um, that we have to excuse some of the criminal acts that occur there in order to keep our economy going and to keep our society functioning. And so you'll hear things like banks that are too big to fail or TBTF, which means that even when they fail us, the government bails them out um, in order to keep them functioning so we don't lose everything, right? They can't go under. And so you'll notice that corporate crime is committed, or what at least what should be considered a corporate crime, because sometimes it's not, because who makes the rules? The same people committing these crimes. But these things are committed, and then they get money and they continue to commit or give themselves bonuses or things like that, right? And so yeah, it annoys me beyond belief because they're also not usually um, met with the same sort of punishments as other forms of crime. And then we have here hate crimes as well. Hate crimes are based on a person's race, religion, or some other like identification or characteristic. And these are highly problematic. And then one of the problems, again, is the labeling of things as hate crimes and who gets to decide what is or what isn't a hate crime. And guess what? We're really conservative with those labels and applications. I want to point out that crime is also problematic because our justice system, which Ibram X. Kendi refers to as a punishment system, is not equal in its treatment of things. There are um, hate crimes, I guess, committed within our justice system. That's pretty extreme, probably. But there are problems with, like, how we sentence, how we view people based on implicit or explicit bias, and the amount of punishment, if any, that people receive. And so, really, I think that criminal justice really needs a complete revamping because the system that we have right now doesn't seem to be working really well. And that here is the end of our discussion on crime reduction for this course. We will talk about it a lot in the race and ethnic relations course. So if you're interested in that course, I hope to see you there next semester.